Welcome to the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast for all decision makers and action takers. Take it away, Esther.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast. I'm Esther.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we're talking about something that is everywhere right now, but I'm not really seeing it used properly. And that is nostalgia in your marketing, or using nostalgic things to market your brand.
Jelly babies.
Oh, I love jelly babies. They're not the same though, you see. I was talking about this with somebody else the other day too, and why do brands go and change the recipe? Why do they change the name? I mean, we remember Opal Fruits.
Oh, God,
I'm old enough to remember Marathon before it changed to Snickers. Thanks for that. So all of these things bring back memories. They bring back, they trigger something positive in you. I think that's the thing that we're looking at. So before coming on air, we were just talking about a few things that have been resurrected recently on the television here in the United Kingdom. And one of them is Gladiators, the TV show. So they brought back new characters. I mean, it's the same format, same layout. If you don't know what Gladiators TV show is, it's nothing to do with the movie. But they have really, really muscly men and women fighting against contenders. And they actually have the referee who was in the original series back in the 90s. They have him back, right? So it's this whole like revival of now that the kids who used to watch it in the 90s, they're now parents and they're sitting down with their kids to watch it. So it's bringing back this whole like family values and, let's do stuff together. And, it's using memories from the past to create an emotional connection with your audience.
I guess for me, a lot of stuff has been redone, like Ghostbusters and, movies and series, and some of them can't be redone, like Columbo. You could never see anybody else doing Columbo ever.
No, but
yeah,
there are
I guess
similarities
it's just,
and other things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to get out of bringing this nostalgia back.
Well, if you think
you're trying to use product placement, perhaps.
If you think about it, even TV shows, right? So we said about Gladiators, and it's same name, same format, new contender or new Gladiators. But if you think about, that 70s show or Stranger Things, 70s show is built on 70s nostalgia, and the music, the fashion, all of that. The same with Stranger Things, built on 80s nostalgia. So you've got all that retro packaging, limited editions, all the graphics, like the text and the fonts and stuff, the hairstyles. I mean, there's some stuff just really shouldn't come back.
Steve Harrington's hair was to die for. Let's not pretend here.
But it wasn't just a show, it was a marketing movement.
Yes.
Right? So you've got these people, you've got the fashion coming back into the shops. Like I remember even just a few years ago, I was going through chemo and I came out from chemo and it was basically like I'd stepped back into the 90s. There was glitter everywhere. There were sequins everywhere. There were shoulder pads in all the shops that I walked into. I was like, what has happened? What did I miss? Some things shouldn't come back. The other things, I would love for them to come back. The music from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And I can hear it in some of the music coming out now. There's a really popular song at the minute. I can't remember the name of it, but it mixes jazz and pop and mixes all these different genres together. And it sort of creates these happy feelings. And it's a really, really, people are always requesting it on the radio because it just brings you back to that time when you felt happier. Your life was simpler, pre-COVID, pre-parenting, having a job and having to work and earn the money for, it's like all of these things when you think back and go, oh, wasn't it great when? So if you get to relive that in some of the products or the services that are provided to you, then you're more likely to buy it. And it is that like mental connection to things that will help with the sale of the products.
So, do you think there are certain types of businesses, like products or services, that would benefit from this? I mean, I can see products using it well, but what about services? How would they use nostalgic things like this?
So for services, I would say, going back to the simpler, you don't have to know how to do it all yourself, because back in the day, the manager had his PA and the PA then, did all the stuff. Now the manager seems to have to manage and PA and all the stuff because we've forgotten that jobs like that existed, and whether it's a PA or a VA or, an AI assistant, you need to use, you need to stick with the formulas that have worked and move forward with integrating the new things.
See, way back when, I remember seeing excerpts of adverts where they're saying, and this is how you use a refrigerator and how you use a dishwasher. And, and look at this nifty storage above, certain areas in the rooms. And so they would demonstrate just how you could make your life easier by using these tools.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a huge pushback on using tools that make life easier, which is weird.
But I think too, people haven't been taught how to use the tools. Right? So you're saying, here's how to use a refrigerator, here's where to store your stuff, here's, like a step-by-step guide. Now we're just thrown these things, we've just, like 20 years ago, Facebook was launched into the world and people just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Bluetooth. Don't ask me how Bluetooth works. I'm glad it does most of the time. There's all of these things that we've just got thrown at us, and AI is a perfect example of that. It's just been launched and, well, have at it. And I think that's where the generations where the nostalgia will work best with. So that's your Gen X's and your millennials. They tend to get on with things more than even the older or the younger generations on either side of them, because they're not afraid of jumping in and working with it till it breaks, because we grew up with that. We had to do that because we were the ones that got thrown, here's the internet, figure it out. Or here's how to do, or not even here's how to do, here's a cassette that's unraveled, figure it out,
Yeah.
So I think when you're marketing to the generation, like you have to think back to what each generation sort of not stands for, but how they react in the world. Okay, so like I said, millennial and Gen X, which is Melanie and myself, we would be more, actually, let's just do it and see what happens. Whereas my parents, who are silent generation boomers, they're very much like, oh no, I couldn't be touching that because I don't know what that's going to do to me. And my kids, who are Gen Alpha, like the start of Gen Alpha or the end of Gen Z or whatever, they're like, sure, what would I be doing that for? It just happens. It just works. It just, and if it doesn't, then,
And they don't even Google, do they? They just give it a go.
No, they don't. They don't even give it a go.
No.
They're just like, if it doesn't work, they hand it to me. How do I do that? Like, Google it. They can't even tell the time.
Now you're mentioning that, Megan and Kira, they'd do the same. They'd say exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So they don't, the 80s nostalgia doesn't work on Gen Z because they're like, oh, that's old. Whereas for the Gen Xers and the millennials, they're like, oh, that's brilliant. That's classic. That's, when the music comes on, like, because I follow a guy on TikTok and he goes through the songs, and these songs are turning 40 years old. I'm like, that is not possible, because then that means I'm old, you know.
Mm.
Songs that are turning 26 in 2026, and you're like, no, 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 this is where I get off, you know. But all of these things just help you to, so nobody wants to feel old, nobody wants to feel that they can't do the thing. So using the nostalgia of, here's a retro design, you know, here's an, you know, a retro logo, here's a, I don't know, the, when they brought back the Coca-Cola names on the cans, that was even a retro thing, because they'd done it years before and it obviously worked.
Mm.
And recycling their marketing strategy, it worked again, because people felt included and younger audiences felt that they were discovering something new. You know, they're like, oh, have you seen this? Like, yeah, it's been done, you know, but it
Yeah.
helped, you know, it was one of those things that worked across generations, and not everything can, though. But you're into
So,
gaming, right, Melanie?
oh, I
So,
am big star.
right. So if I was to say, you know, Nintendo just brought out the, you know, a new Nintendo 64, would you go and buy it? Or,
Probably not. No.
well, you're more gaming on a computer, but
Yeah.
just imagine you were into your Xboxes and into your, you know,
Yeah.
gaming merch. What about a Game Boy? Would you buy a Game Boy?
I'd probably buy a Game Boy. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're buying the memory.
Yeah. I'd probably buy a Frogger as well. That was my first game. I loved Frogger. Brilliant. But you know, there's other places like Eddie Rockets, which is from the
Yes.
50s, and it's still so popular today.
Yeah, but I don't think that really works as well over here, because that was very much, you know, it's very Americanized,
Mm.
and not like, things in the 50s didn't come over as quickly to the UK and Ireland as they did um to the rest of the world, so to speak.
Mm.
So, you know, it I enjoy going because of watching old TV shows like what's his, Happy Days and
I
things
was
like
about
that.
to say the Fonz.
Yeah, it reminds me of
Eh.
Happy Days. And
Yeah.
but it wouldn't remind my kids of that. They just like the food. You know, so
Yeah.
it's not, it gives different things to different people. Okay. But
Pulp Fiction.
and there's some things from the good old days that shouldn't be brought back either, you know? So you have to find a way to incorporate it into your business and how it will work with your business. So obviously, like, we know Noreen. Noreen listens to us. She's a genealogist. And obviously, like, retro and history is all into genealogy. So she could bring stuff into her things by saying, when this person was born in 1926, this would have been what they would have done. And this, you know, back in the simpler days when you would cut turf by, you know, by hand and leave the little stacks, you know, and this, talking about the turf, for those that don't know what turf is, it's a dried out
Bog.
clay, dried out bit of ground from Ireland, and the smell is amazing. So the
It
minute you
is.
mention it, it generates the other senses in you. So you don't even have to show a picture of it, or, you know, just the simple mention of it can bring back other senses, like the smell of it, where you were the last time you had it, you know, smelt a turf fire, sitting on your granny's knee, you know, then your granny and what she would have been wearing, and all of these things. And it just, maybe it's our age. Maybe we've got to an age now where we think this is, you know, this is what's good. Because again, before we came on, I was explaining to Melanie, there is a business that started just a couple of years ago, and it's called the Over 30s Club. Right. So it does exactly what it says in the tin. It is for people aged over the age of 30 to go out and dance. So it's a club, right? But it's different in that, because we're all older now, they actually go and like the club is open from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. because we have other responsibilities, other commitments. We need to be home before midnight because we are
And we'd rather
Cinderellas.
be in bed.
We'd rather be in our own bed and rather than roaming the streets at 2 in the morning. But it started off as one night in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and it has grown in the past 2 years. There are now at least one over 30s club per month in Belfast, not to mention lots of different towns around Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland and England. And it's now branching out into the rest of Europe. And it's purely because they play the music from the time that we would have all been going to the clubs. They play, they give you like, glow sticks and things like this as you go in. It just brings you back those memories of a time, like I said, pre-kids, pre-responsibilities, because we're still young enough
Pre-debt.
to we're still young enough to enjoy it, but the clubs are mostly gone now for our younger generation, so they wouldn't appreciate it. They're going like, what would you be doing that for? Because they don't know the joy of going out and dancing and nobody goes in high heels anymore. That is one thing I've noticed by going. Everyone's in their trainers because we have learned that our knees are more important than fashion. But there's other spin-offs coming out of that as well. So there's Bingo Loco. There's, all these other things that, because they're marketing to an age that wants to still be relevant, that has the disposable income to be able to go and do it, even if it is just once a month, and can get a babysitter if needed once a month. And they're always packed. They're always sold out. Like, it is like the minute the date is released, you have to be on the ball to get your ticket because there's so many things. So businesses need to think how they can use nostalgia to bring it back. And you do not need a huge budget to do it.
I guess it's all the stuff like monkey nuts at the zoo, and that's a really old-fashioned thing. It's not just music and smells; it's placement of things as well.
Yes.
Like you can go to the amenity tip, or thrift stores, and you can find old equipment and the hanging where you can hang your clothes out, so when you're indoors, when you don't have a washing line, and all these different things that takes you back a generation.
Yeah.
It could be what you used to do with your mum
Yeah.
or
Or
your
your
dad
granny. Yeah.
or your granny. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and if you can find an authentic way to use that to make your audience feel something, it
Yes.
makes it a heck of a lot more memorable.
Yeah.
And it does help you develop your unique selling proposition as well.
Yes. Because people do buy based on feelings. Okay.
Yes.
If they feel the warm and fuzzies, they're more likely to go and buy from you. And it can be something simple like a throwback. If you've been in business, like Melanie and I have both been in business for over 10 years now, we don't use the same logo that we used back then. Our
No.
websites definitely don't look the same as what they did back then. But even using stuff like that in the throwbacks, and I saw a video recently too and people do it online all the time. They're like, obviously, there was the classic Throwback Thursday, but people are going, this is the video that launched me, or this is the topic I was talking about when it went viral, or this is what happened when I did XYZ, because they want to go along on the journey with you and feel the story, and they're more likely then to give their own anecdotes as well. So nostalgia is all about storytelling, and it's all about bringing back those positive emotions, hopefully, for people. Obviously, some people won't feel positive emotions, because you mentioned monkey nuts zoo. Oh, that's bad. That's terrible. Or I'm allergic to nuts. And, you'll always have people that will make it negative in some way or another. But if you keep it true to your brand and true to you, then the nostalgia will feel like, an extra part of your business rather than something forced.
I remember being on those pedlos at a Lido as a child, and kite flying in the local wreck, and hurting myself on those extremely hard like dragons that you swung on. Do you remember those? And they were really hard to get on and off without hurting yourself. And then you felt violently ill from the actual movement of it as well. And yet and then burning yourself on slides.
Yes, the metal
Oh my
slides.
God. They
I,
were lethal.
I drove. I don't know where I was driving the other day, but I drove past one and I went, "That- "How is that still? you know,
And they're
how is
so
that still legal?"
high. I mean, what were we doing on anything that high? And it was just concrete. It wasn't
Yeah, there
bouncy
was.
stuff.
Yeah, no, the good old days.
Oh, you could fry an egg on those things during the summer.
Well, we don't get summers like those anymore either. You know, all of the stuff that we're saying is all nostalgia, and I remember, and it's some of the things though when you've gone to try them with your own kids, you've then felt disappointed that they aren't into it. You know,
Yeah.
like I tried flying a kite with my kids, and they were like, "What are you doing?" You know, like, oh well, tried. You know, but they'll have their own things to look back and be nostalgic about. You know, oh, my first PS3, my first iPad.
When I got over 1,000 on my Vimeo or whatever.
Yeah. So nostalgia means different things to different people, but it's a very, very strong feeling that you can tap into with the right words and memories.
Yeah. Well, that's taken us back a bit, hasn't it, Esther? And hopefully it's taken you back as well. And maybe this is something else you can plug and play into your new strategy, into your next quarter or into your next year. If you're already using this as a part of your strategy, we would love to hear from you to see how successful it's been and what examples that you've used. But that's all we have time for this week. But we'll be back next week with another episode. Have a great week.
Bye bye.
Do you remember penny sweets?
I do. I remember when a 10p mix up would be at least 10 sweets in it. I remember, like I said, opal fruits getting a quarter of millions going
God,
into the
yeah, I
sweet
remember
shop and
those.
all the jars behind and just pouring them out. And yeah, there are those oldie style sweet shops around. I've seen some of them. They're
They
brilliant.
don't cost a penny anymore, though.
They don't. They don't.
No.
No. No. If only we could bring back those good old days as well.